The SRL on the NFL. Previews, predictions, and analysis covering every storyline in football every week. The SRL on the NFL. Hey everyone, and welcome back to SRL on the NFL. Brendan Yerkes, Alex Fachaponte here with you as always, as now the first round of the NFL postseason is in the books. The wild card weekend is over, and we've moved on to the divisional round. It was a great weekend of football, Alex. A lot of really exciting games, and I think now it's set up for everyone's favorite weekend of the year and the best games of the year, the divisional round.
Yeah, I'm really excited for these future matchups. I'm not going to lie, though. Some of these games in the wild card were just kind of blowouts, and it was kind of like, dang, I wish that this was a little bit more tightly contested. But still, overall, a great week of football, and I'm very excited for these upcoming matchups.
Right. I know there's been a lot of discussion on maybe changing the format so the teams that have the higher record have the home games, but I like it how it is. I think winning your division should mean something. Most times there is a team, and this year there was two in the NFC that would have been lower, like the Rams-Vikings game. Home field would have been flipped based on records, but I think winning your division should mean something, so I'm not really against that. And for all the games, like you said, blowouts, but it's still worth having this weekend and having the three games because sometimes there are upsets. It's not always blowouts. You never know. It's not a guarantee that some of these teams are going to win. Like we've seen like a few years ago, remember the Titans, they came out and shocked the Patriots in the first round and stuff like that. Like last year, the Packers beat the Cowboys, the 7 playing the 2. That stuff happens. So
Right.
I think it's still worth having the weekend and not just compressing it into as little games as possible.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that the format is solid as is. And yeah, there's always going to be upsets. That's the beauty of the NFL playoffs. I just wish that there were a little more, honestly. That's all.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Before we get started and going into last week's games, make sure to follow us on social media at srl.media on Instagram and I think TikTok for the next week. I don't really know what's going on there, but we still have a TikTok for now at srl.media.
Correct.
And check out this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube under the tagline SRL Media. All right, let's go. Saturday, 2 games. The first one was 4:30, Texans and Chargers. We both had the Chargers to win this game. That's what we thought would happen. But
Yep.
no, Houston at home for the second straight year. They are the 4 seed, and they beat the 5 seed in the first round at 32-12. Big win over the Chargers, and it's just more the same for LA. They just can't get anything going. Justin Herbert, 4 interceptions, and now I'm not going to even say it's his fault. I mean, everything that seems to happen has nothing to do with him. He's been put in these horrible situations, and yes, he needs to be better at times, but 2 of these interceptions bounced right off his receiver's hands and right into the defenders. And I think the pick 6, that really just sealed the game.
It's just I don't know how to put it. It's just like, well, I guess they're just the Chargers. It's frustrating, but it's like, although yeah, like 2 kind of bounced off the receiver's hands and all that, he still technically had more interceptions than he did the entire season in one game, which is insane. Don't get me wrong, yeah, like some of that is on the receiver and I get that, but even still, 2 legit picks. He had 3 picks the entire year. That was Charger football, keeping care of the ball and dominating time of possession and all that type of stuff. And they just weren't able to do that. They weren't able to play their game. Texans were able to play their game and dominated.
Yeah, they got through this year playing a lot of lower scoring games, getting just as many points as they would need to win.
Yeah.
And this game, they're just obviously the pick 6 didn't help. All the turnovers kind of set up Houston and made it easy for them, plus them being the home team. But yeah, it's just Justin Herbert has been in these situations, and he still has not gotten a playoff win, only a second playoff game. And he still is talked about as one of those best receivers in the league. So he's definitely struggled in that regard. But on the flip side, the Texans, they did what they had to do. I think they could be better, but I think this is a good momentum game for them. Now going into Kansas City, which is a very tough game, for them to make something out of it. They had a rough stretch towards the end of the season, but they made it in. They won a playoff game, and now you never know what can happen. But I think that's something definitely they could build off of, although they did get some help, but a very good defensive game for D'Amico Ryans and his crew.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a very good defensive game, and they were able to stuff the run, which was important because the Chargers were usually a very good running team. Like Dobbins only had 26 yards, Gus Edwards only had 22 yards. So keeping that run game in check was very important for them, and they were able to handle that. But I don't know. Next week is a different beast in Kansas City, so we'll
Right.
have to see.
It's definitely going to be a challenge. We know they've had their struggles there over the years. Let's move on to the night game. It was the Steelers in Baltimore to take on the Ravens, and as we expected, the Ravens got the win. Alex actually predicted the score of this one correctly. So actually, before we didn't even mention before, we both went 4 for 6. We had the same exact game picks, but um, Alex got that game right and another score correct. So 2 correct scores in one weekend for the winning team is kind of crazy.
Pretty
Um,
insane.
but yeah, this game, Steelers pulled back at the end. I mean, Russ had a solid game. It wasn't even a bad game. It just the Ravens, I think, are just better. They had nothing going on the ground, the Steelers. And once you knew the Ravens, they came out to that fast lead that it was going to be hard for the Steelers to crawl back into it. They tried, but the Ravens in the end pulled away.
The thing is, like at the end of the day, just the Steelers' offense is just it's not built to come back. Like like you said, when they fall behind, they're usually not going to come back. Their game is predicated on their defense and being able to stop the opponent, and they weren't able to. Baltimore was able to again do what they've been doing all year. Derrick Henry just dominated the ground,
Derrick Henry,
and
man.
Lamar taking care of the football and doing well in the rushing game too. Like you can't stop this offense right now. They're great.
I'm very confident in this Ravens team. I think this is one of the better versions we've seen of them. Like I think you could say last year too, because even years ago when they were the top seed, there were some struggles, and I think last year everybody thought this was the time for the Ravens to beat the Chiefs, and then they
Mhm.
somehow lost that AFC Championship game last year. And now this year, the regular season was a little rocky at times, but going into the playoffs, they were hot and they were playing well. And now getting this game, the Steelers, um, they show out. Running game was really good. Passing game, there's a little bit more to give there, but I think they're trending in the right direction. And now going into Buffalo next week, which we'll talk about that game next. I think I like where they are. The Ravens, they're looking good.
Yeah, I mean they definitely look good. That game will probably, in my opinion, be the best game all week. The Ravens and Bills. It's going to be a crazy one for sure.
Yeah, that's 6:30 next Sunday. But yeah, I think the Ravens a lot to like I said, but still, I think some things to improve. But they're trending in the right direction. This was a game that they were going to have to be able to run all over the field because the Steelers are very good at in pass protection and the pass rush is really good. So let the run game speak for itself. And now next game, it's going to have to be a mix of both. They're going to need everything to come out if they're going to want to beat the Bills to set up that trip back to the AFC Championship game. Speaking of the Bills, they beat the Broncos 31-7. This is the other score Alex predicted correctly. This was a thumping. You thought that the Broncos were going to maybe make it a game. I did at least. But after the first drive, Bo Nix with a dart touchdown, which was awesome.
It looked great.
Great play. First playoff game, first playoff touchdown. You're like, oh, the Broncos might make this a game. And they did not. They really just had nothing going on offense. I think the nail in the coffin, honestly, was when they hit the field goal off the upright right at halftime. You're like, oh, you go in with a tie at half, and then it just didn't go in, and just seemed like nothing went right for them after that. But a lot of struggles, a lot of third downs not converted, and I think that a testament to the Bills team that is very strong, very well-rounded everywhere on offense and defense. But I just think they're also, out of the Broncos league. The Broncos being the 7. I know I talked before that sometimes the 7s upset the 2. I thought, again, it would be a close game, but this is a very, very lopsided matchup, I think. Whereas in the NFC, which is a game we'll talk about next, which was the Packers and the Eagles is the 7-2, I think is a little bit different because those are two teams like, all right, the Packers seem like they're better than a 7 seed and could make this more interesting. But no, the Broncos, it was a tough one for them. Good for them to break their drought, get back into the playoffs for the first time since 2016. But definitely a lot to build there. I think they're going to continue to improve, though, and make that team better. And Bo Nix showed a lot this year. So I think a lot of potential for that team in the future.
The thing that I noticed particularly in this game was just I feel like Sean Payton really just doesn't trust Bo Nix, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, that first play, absolute dart, awesome. Why are we not building upon that? Like,
Right.
I'm watching this game and they're starting out like first, second down, just spamming runs, and it's so predictable, and they're getting stuffed all the time, and then they're in third and long, and they're not able to do anything. I I think that Bo Nix has a reliable enough arm that you can run some passing plays on first and second down.
I
And
think what they
that
need to do
that was
with
my
him
frustration.
So they need to get him out of the pocket more, I think, on the run, throwing on the run. And I think even running, like scrambling, I think that they don't let him, go past the line of scrimmage enough. There's a lot of plays from watching the game that, oh, you can go run for a few yards. You can go pick up the first. And it seems like he's afraid to kind of use his legs in that regard. I think he should just take off with it more. And that would kind of open up the offense a little bit and add another threat, because it seemed like there was a few chances he didn't do that. And then the Broncos end up having to punt or turning over the ball on downs.
It's just frustrating because it's just I see the potential in Bo Nix, and he had an amazing rookie year, and the Broncos are ahead of schedule at this point. I just and this is a great season for them, something like you said to build upon, which is great. They're just not the Bills yet. The Bills are just a completely different league. They've been there, done that the past like 4 to 5 years. And again, this, like I said last week, this reminded me of like that New England team that was like decent coming in a few years ago with Mac Jones. And everyone's like, oh, well, maybe they could do something against the Bills on the road. And they just stomped them. And I just thought the same thing was going to happen here, and it did.
Yep, got to start somewhere. So good for the Broncos to make the playoffs. Like you said, Allen, really good game. James Cook, good game on the ground. So they look to keep that going as they host the Ravens next week. So that, like you said, should be a really exciting game.
Yep.
Middle game of Sunday was the Packers and the Eagles. I think everyone thought this would be a lot closer than it was, because the score was only 22-10 with the Eagles picking up the win. It seemed like it was all Eagles. Green Bay had no luck and just really had nothing going in this game.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it didn't feel like the Packers really had a chance from the start. But as weird as to say, I don't think we saw the best version of the Eagles on Sunday either.
I
Like,
definitely did not.
I wasn't impressed. Like, yeah, like Saquon did all right. But Jalen Hurts didn't look particularly great. Even though, yeah, he had 2 passing touchdowns, he only had 130 yards. It's not great. And the receiving threats, I mean, A.J. Brown only had 1 catch.
Nothing.
Like,
Yep.
that's insane. So that's got to get cleaned up. They have too many offensive weapons to not get them involved. And again, that's probably a testament to Jalen Hurts' like rust and coming back, obviously. So that's a possibility. I'm concerned with this passing attack. Like if Saquon gets stuffed and a team stuffs a run, what are they going to do now? Like that's my concern. That's what I was thinking about when watching this game.
And the Rams were great last week, so they're going to end up playing the Rams in the playoff game. They'll be at home. They're going to have to be better. The offense is going to have to be better, like you mentioned. You need to get A.J. Brown more involved. You can't just rely on Saquon Barkley to kind of run you to the win. And
Right.
Jalen Hurts needs to elevate. We've never seen him elevate. He's a great quarterback in this league, but he's not one of those guys that can win you games. He's a guy that will help the cause, but he can't be the guy, and he isn't, at least hasn't shown us that. So they need to be better. The Packers, tough way to go. Jordan Love, 3 interceptions. Josh Jacobs had a really good game. That one nasty run that he ended up on the goal line and then scored right after. But yeah, Jordan Love, you see a lot of flashes from him the last 2 years, but there's still these moments where it's just he has a horrible game. It's like a couple good games, then a horrible game. It's the consistency, I think, is lacking. And now after a big playoff win last year, almost winning in the divisional round over San Francisco as well, to now being this one losing as the 7th seed. They lost their last game against the Bears, which would have gotten a better matchup for them playing, I think, Tampa Bay instead of the Eagles. I mean, Tampa Bay is still a solid team, but nothing like this Eagles team. So
No.
bad way to go out. Jordan Love struggled, so we'll see what they do in that team to kind of improve it. Maybe, shore up the line a little bit, add some more receivers, because it's kind of a receiver by committee thing going on in Green Bay. But they're a good team, and I think they just need to figure it out. Maybe, and I don't think it's Jordan Love fully is the problem. It's just something's off there. They think they should be better, but we'll see what they do this offseason to kind of improve the team up. But they should be a playoff team again next year.
They should be a playoff team for sure. I just think they're just in the toughest division in football, which also just is killer.
That's true.
And yeah, it's the Jordan Love inconsistencies. If you've ever seen Jordan Love like early on in the year and then versus Jordan Love in like Toyotathon, it's like a completely different thing.
Oh my God.
It's hilarious to look at, but it's true. So it's weird. We need more consistency out of Jordan Love. Jordan Love, though, is a very good quarterback. And it's only his 2nd year starting. So we have to realize that. We got to cut him a little bit of slack. It's only his 2nd year of starting. and he's made the playoffs both years, which is impressive for a second-year quarterback per se, actually
Right.
starting. So we got to cut him a little bit of slack. He's already won a playoff game that's already probably more than it's
Most
already
of the
more
league.
than Justin Herbert. I mean, if we're
There,
being
there you
technical.
go.
So yeah, I mean, there's still a lot to build upon, and we need more consistency out of him. But I think we need to cut him a little bit of slack.
Well, moving on, another young quarterback, the man of the hour, Jaden Daniels, leads the Commanders to a 23-20 win over the Buccaneers. It's the Commanders' first playoff win in almost 20 years. I think it was 19 years. They said
Wow.
2006. I'm pretty sure, and it was actually against the Bucs in Tampa Bay. And this franchise has just taken a complete 180 from last year. Jaden Daniels looks like one of the best. He could be one of the best in the league. The Heisman winner from last year, 268 yards, 2 touchdowns. They were down in this game, came back, but that was an interesting scenario in the fourth quarter. They had a first and goal. I'm like the one they found they didn't score.
Yep.
Then the Bucs fumble shortly after. They get it back. That time, punch it in, get the tie, and the field goal at the end, which was just crazy that it doinked its way in. But this Commanders team is fun to watch. They got a good mix of vets and younger players. Like they've drafted well, but signing guys like Bobby Wagner, Austin Eckler have definitely helped. And it's really fun to see. For the Bucs on the flip side, tough way to go out, a game that they probably should have won. They had it at home in their hands and let it slip away, but I think they dealt with a lot of injury this year, and they did will through that to make it here. So for them, I'm not concerned. I think, again, it's a tough way to lose, but regroup next year. Again, build some more pieces around there. They have Baker, he's going to be consistent. He had the bad fumble, but this game just comes down to the Commanders. They found a way to win. And that's seemingly what they've done all season.
It's similar to the point that I made last week where the Commanders are just really good in these one-score games. They always somehow find a way to scratch, claw through, or just come back like they did here. I'm very impressed with the poise that Jane Daniels has in his rookie year. No one expected him to be here. No one expected him to be even this good out the gate, and here he is. I just honestly, it's getting to the point where it's just like this stuff is honestly not even shocking me anymore because of how just dominant he's really been this year. Uh, I and yeah, for the Bucks, it's just they're a solid team, and yeah, they were pretty much injured this year, so you got to take that into consideration as well. They're in a very weak division though, so I wouldn't be
Right.
terribly concerned as long as they could get everyone back. But yeah, this Commanders team is pretty dangerous.
And I do think if the Bucks were healthy, they would have won that division by a wider margin.
Definitely.
Also worth mentioning. I mean, they got in the last week, but
Right.
missing a lot of guys. And the last game, Monday night, the Rams and the Vikings from the stadium in Arizona because the fire is in LA.
Yep.
And I picked the Vikings, and you did as well. And
Yep.
we did the show last Tuesday.
Mhm.
And the more I saw things throughout the week, and we had to make our picks early, obviously, because I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna change my pick. But
Yeah.
by the time this game started, I think, leaning for the Rams. I think I would have picked the Rams if we did it a few days later, and the Rams ended up winning. Just I don't know. I was just like one of those feelings. I was kind of in between on this game. Like this is the game I think I had the toughest time picking because the Vikings were 14-3 in the regular season, and the
Mhm.
Rams, although came in as the 4 seed, and now they get the home game, and they have a lot of guys that have been there before. McVay's been there before, and they typically have playoff success. They've surprised teams in the past, winning games here and there. And this team, a lot of injuries throughout the year, a lot of inconsistencies, but at the end, they poured it on and find a way there. They get the motivation that the Vikings think that they're better than they are. And Dan Campbell saying we'll see you in the divisional round. But here we go. The Rams come in and they just start the game on fire. And Sam Darnold, another game where he wasn't very good. And I will say this, it's not all on Sam Darnold. And I think everyone on social media is just Darnold's terrible. He lost this game. No, he wasn't good in this game. There were things he done wrong. He held onto the ball for too long. Bad judgment on some of the throws. But the offensive line was terrible for the Vikings this game. It was absolutely terrible. They gave up 9 sacks. So he was running for his life the entire night. Sounds familiar with him. And the rest of the team didn't do anything either. Like the receivers weren't getting open. Like he's holding on to the ball because nobody's open. And the line was terrible, and the defense didn't do anything. So the Rams' offense was consistent, had a good night, do what they usually do. A lot of big yard passing plays. The run game was good. So doesn't shock me. And this is typical Vikings fashion. They have this great season. They lose in the first round. It all came crashing down in the last 2 weeks. They go from being the potential 1 seed to being bounced in the wild card round on the road. So I think the Rams, it's exciting to watch that they push through. Now they get another game, a good test against the Eagles. That should be a really good football game. And the Vikings are out just like that, just like when they made it 2 years ago and they lost to the Giants. And me defending Sam Darnold like this in the Big 25 is pretty crazy, but here we are.
Yeah. This Vikings team all year, like since the beginning of the year, I was saying that they were cuties, and then by the midpoint of the year, I was like, you know what? Maybe they're kind of legit. And then they were kind of making me rethink again towards the end of the season, and they're cuties. We found out that we know what they really are. At the end of the day, they're cuties. But this is an amazing season for the Vikings. Who would have thought the Vikings would have been 14-3 on the regular season? Going in this year, I thought they could have had a chance to be a top 5 pick in the draft. Let alone 14-3. They had injuries to start out. They obviously drafted JJ McCarthy expecting good things out of him, and he goes down. Well, all right, we'll start Sam Darnold. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, Sam Darnold. Oh no. And Sam Darnold puts on a crazy year. 35 touchdowns, 12 picks, 4,300 yards. I would not have had that on my bingo card this year.
Right.
So, yes, disappointing end because you're 14-3. You should be expected to go a little bit farther, but this is not a disappointing year. This is an impressive year for them.
And now they have a decision to make.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you keep Darnold? I mean, Darnold lost himself a lot of money in these last 2 weeks. He made himself a lot of money in the last 2 weeks. Like, well, how much is he going to get? Because the two biggest games they played, they didn't win. And a lot of their games were close towards the end of the year. That they came away at the end with the win. So a lot of close games, kind of like that Vikings team 2 years ago. But you have JJ McCarthy. Do you want him to play? But he hasn't done anything because he injured his ACL. He just watched. And Darnold's been good. I would think they find an agreement to keep him there. I think that they're not going to just give up on Darnold after having a really good year. And I think Darnold would want to stay because obviously this is the most success he's had in his career. Sure. And they'll bounce back and build from there. Because again, like you said, nobody had any expectations for this Vikings team.
No.
And I think now you put yourself in a spot where, like, look, we have a good coach. We have a quarterback who has shown flashes this year. For most of the year, he was good for a long time. Yeah. And had a rough last 2 weeks. That if we can shore up the line a little bit, maybe add some more receiver help, because obviously they have Addison and Jefferson top two, but behind that it's kind of like, not great. You have the top two. You have Hawkinson, and then maybe shore up the defense a little bit more, and then go from there. But now instead of thinking this team's going to be in a rebuild, they're in a position where they could be a perennial playoff team. So still a successful year for the Vikings. Very frustrating that it ends that way. But I think with Kevin O'Connell at the helm, they will be okay. And then on the other side for the Rams, they get to keep on playing. They were a team that kind of has fallen under the radar the last few years after they were kind of a high-profile team winning the Super Bowl. Now they've kind of been, they missed the playoffs the last year, and then they got in last year too, and they almost beat the Lions, and now they're back in again with a completely different look from what the team that won the Super Bowl. It's kind of crazy how different it is. But, it's still got McVay, still got Cooper Kupp. Like, they're doing their thing. All right, so let's talk about the coaches that, the new coaches around the league. Still only one hiring that was made. Mike Vrabel goes to the New England Patriots. No surprises there. I think everybody knew once Gerard Mayo got fired and Vrabel was available that was pretty much a done deal. He's a Patriots Hall of Famer, played there for 8 years, won 3 Super Bowls, blah, blah, blah. So that gets lined up. He gets to work with Drake May, so they have something nice building in New England again. So we'll see if they could take a step next year with him at head coach and May getting some more experience, some more draft picks in there. And the other coaching news from the week was that the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy parted ways, so they're going to look for a fresh start, which I don't mind that decision. I think that they were there for a while, and if they kept him, I wouldn't mind either. But I think it's just, let's start fresh. They're kind of getting stale down there. They're kind of stuck in a middle of the pack last 2 years. Well, the year before they were good, but this year, middle of the pack, average team. Just find a new coach, start fresh.
My issue with McCarthy is just like he's a floor raiser, but he's not going to put you over the top. Like
Right.
he's solid enough. He will make you a decent team, but he will not make you a Super Bowl team. That's my issue with him. Now, I mean, if you're a team that's terrible and you want to just get back to relevance, not a bad idea to hire him. I personally don't think that he elevates. That's my problem with McCarthy. So I think that's a smart move. I think it's a smart move. You've been there for many years, and you need a new voice. You need a fresh start.
I think the problem for the Cowboys is now Dak Prescott. I've always liked Dak Prescott. I think he was been an overhated quarterback, but I it's not that they kept him. It's not that they re-signed him, but to give him $60 million is just a waste because he doesn't elevate the team either. He's a good quarterback. He's helped them win games before, but to pay him that much money, it's like you have other guys like Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb. Those are the game breakers that you have. They've always had a good offensive line too. Now it's not so great. And now you have Dak Prescott, who was injured for the pretty much the entire year, and you got this big contract that you have to deal with, and you're kind of stuck with him now.
And then
So we'll see.
then the issue with like bringing their guys back, like with Micah, like
Right,
is going to
I
come
would have
in.
signed Micah Parsons 17 times before I signed Dak Prescott.
It's tough. It's a tough decision though because Dak has been there and been very good for a while. The fans love him,
Right.
and he's a solid player. Like he's a very good player. But
Listen, good quarterbacks don't grow on trees, so I get
yeah,
keeping him, but I just think the price tag is too much. You can't. Sometimes you're like, oh, the grass is greener, and then you go somewhere and get somebody else, and you're like, oh, maybe that wasn't so smart.
the thing is though, like they just every time a new contract is up for a quarterback, they're the then new highest paid quarterback.
Right.
It's just how the market is right now. It's insane. It's
Just some guys aren't worth it.
no, but that's how it is. Like when the next guy's payday is up, then you'll see another game breaking deal that you're like, wait,
Right.
what? How is this even possible?
So I heard Deion Sanders talk to the Cowboys. That might be a possibility. I think that'd be really cool, but
That'd be
I don't think that's the route that they're going to end up going. Other things we've heard: Ben Johnson interested in the Raiders. That's picking up some steam, but I think Jaguars are the front runner for him right now. I would think. I think there he gets a lot of control, like he wants. He gets to work with Trevor Lawrence because he wants the quarterback. So I would expect Ben Johnson to go there. I think that it's between the Raiders and the Jags for him. But I mean, the Bears have talked to him too, but I would think it's one of those ones. The Bears did talk to McCarthy today, so that could be an option. They've kind of done another wide net, not as wide as the Jets, who've interviewed seemingly like 20 people at this point. I mean, everybody under the sun is getting an interview. Terrible coaches from college, terrible coordinators. Yeah, you could have an interview, sure.
Why not? You get
So
it.
that doesn't really make any sense why they're doing that. But their two tops, their favorites I saw are Aaron Glenn and Brian Flores. I think would both would be solid options. I think they're going to end up going with Glenn because they say Glenn is linked between the Jets and the Saints. But Glenn, obviously, I think he played for both teams, but longtime Jet. And we know there's a report that Glenn wants the Jet job if it's offered to him. So we'll see which way that goes. And I believe I'm missing one more team that is seeking a coach. I'm not sure. But, I mean, those are the main storylines with that. Nothing new really happened, just interviews and going through it. So we'll see as that moves on. But to what we wanted to get to, this week's Divisional Round games. Again, check us out on social media at srl.media on Instagram and TikTok for now. And then SRL Media on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube to check out this show. All right, first game. It's on Saturday, 4:30. The Chiefs are back. They are hosting the Houston Texans. And I think we both got to go with Kansas City here. I mean, Houston, they got a nice win last week, and they're got to probably be feeling pretty good about themselves, confident going to Arrowhead, but it's playoff Chiefs. Nobody's beaten them, at least not the Texans, who have had a lead on them 5 years ago and then lost in disastrous fashion. And I believe they played again at some point, but got to go with Kansas City. They haven't been playing their best, but they got a week off. They're all reset, and this is where they play their best football. So let's get Kansas City back to the AFC Championship game for what, the 7th year in a row?
That's insane. But yeah, I don't see how Kansas City doesn't make it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the Texans have had a solid season, especially considering their injury woes. I'm even surprised that they made it past the Chargers, honestly. But this Kansas City team in the playoffs is just a different beast. Kelsey's gonna have some legacy game. They're just different. They're different in the playoffs. I don't know how else to explain it. I think their defense is going to step up, especially this game as well.
Right.
I'm taking them 17-10, Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I have a little bit more scoring, but I think it's going to be a very defensive game. 21-14, I have the Chiefs winning in this game. A lot of touchdowns, but they're going to be finding their footing again, kind of after a slow offensive season, kind of pick it back up to where they need it to be. So if they win this game, that whoever they have in the AFC Championship, can be either the Ravens or the Bills, they're ready for it.
Right.
All right, we got the Commanders and the Lions as the Saturday night game. Pretty exciting that the Commanders made it here. It's been a great run, but I think this is where it's going to end. I'm going to go with Detroit, 1 seed for the first time in a long time. Going to be a close game, though. Very exciting game. This is a game where that Dan Campbell is going to take his risk, go for a lot of fourth downs, and I think this is a game where it's going to work. They're experienced now with the playoffs after last year's long run. They know what they're going to have to do a little bit differently. So I'm taking the Lions. I'm going to go 22-18, a close game. I think the defenses are going to hold to a lot of field goals in this one, but in the end, it's going to be the Lions pulling away and getting back to the NFC Championship game, which will be at home this year if they win this one and set them up for a path to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm going to be going with the Lions here as well. I'm seeing, though, more of a shootout. I think it's going to be a 30-28 game. It's going to be down to the wire. Like you said, though, it's just the Lions at home. I love the Lions at home. They always play really good there. They always put up points. And the Commanders, I just think that the Linsanity run is probably running out of it. And that's not to trash on them. They still have an amazing year, and they should be very excited for what's to come. But the Lions are built for the now, and that's another reason why I'm just going with the Lions here.
Yep, I agree with that. Moving on now to Sunday, the 2 p.m. game is the Rams and the Eagles. And I'm going to take the Eagles here. I said they were my pick to go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. I think there's some things they have to work out from last week, but I think they know what they are. And now the Rams defense is young and hungry playing these games. I just think this is one of those games where being at Philadelphia, home field advantage is going to play a big factor. The Eagles have that playoff experience. A lot of these younger guys. Now, first road playoff game for the Rams. Got to get that figured out. And I just think this is a game that they're going to find a way to unleash the offense. They're going to have to get A.J. Brown more involved. I think they will, and that they're going to win this game. I have my score as 24-16 at the link.
So I'm going a little bold here. See, last week I made my bracket picks, and I had the Eagles getting upset in this round as well. I think the Rams are going to randomly upset the Eagles. And again, like you said earlier on, this Rams team is no joke in the second half of the year. I mean, so have the Eagles. Both teams have been very good second half teams, and that's something to take into account. But I think this experience, the championship experience of McVay, I think that could play a role. I just think I don't know what to put it. The offense of the Eagles, I was very concerned with, like I mentioned earlier. And I don't know if they could fully get that clicking within 2 weeks. So that's where my biggest concerns are. And I feel like the Rams are just a well-oiled machine right now, and it's going to be a close one. I'm thinking 23-17 Rams.
Yeah, I think that the Rams just had it too easy last week. Now this is going to be a big change from that. Different setting, colder weather. But we'll see. And the last game that everybody's looking forward to, the Buffalo Bills hosting the Baltimore Ravens. It's at 6:30 p.m. on Sunday. And this is NFL playoff football. Allen and Lamar, probably the top 2 MVP candidates for this year. And I'm sure both of them don't really care about that if they win this football game right here. And it's in Buffalo, which is big. Last year, Buffalo lost in this round to Kansas City. They have a chance to meet again. The winner of this game if Kansas City wins the other game for the AFC Championship. And it's going to be crazy. Both teams' offenses, the Ravens' offense, especially the run game, has been on fire. The Bills have been more effective in the pass game, so that's good. Both defenses have been solid all over the field, but it's going to be tough. Very hard game to pick. I'm going with the Ravens. I think the Bills had the Ravens last time they played in the playoffs, and it was in Buffalo as well, and the Bills pulled it out. I just think that the Ravens are more on fire right now, where the Bills obviously had a great game last week, but playing a team like Denver changes that a little bit. And the Bills kind of have solidified where they are for the last few weeks. The Ravens have been fighting throughout the year. I love the way their run game is going. I think Derrick Henry is going to have a monster game once again. And then that could open up, hopefully, the pass game a little bit for the Ravens. I think they're going to go in. Lamar's going to get this big win and set up another chance to go to the Super Bowl in the AFC Championship game after one they should have had last year. I'm going to give it to the Ravens in a very close game, 28-27. And I feel like it's going to come down to a field goal or something late in the game to close it out.
So for me personally, I'm gonna be going with the Bills here at home. I think that this Buffalo environment very much suits them. They have had very good playoff wins here. They've also had some tough playoff losses, but I just don't see how the Bills this year, with how good that they've looked consistently, they lose this one. I think that it's going to be very close throughout most of the game. I see like this score being relatively, maybe the Bills are up 3 or something like that in in the third quarter, and then I see some type of random explosion, and I see them pulling it out with a 28-14 win over the Ravens. It's a little bit bold because the Ravens are a very good team, but I think that this Bills team is just going to show them that they're starting to run out of gas here.
Yeah, and you can go either way. Look at these two teams. They're both well-coached teams with very good quarterbacks and very good supporting cast, very good defenses that for the last years have not been able to get it done and not be able to get the big playoff win. Now, both of them going head-to-head, this is that game.
Yeah.
To be able to push through to the AFC Championship, which, again, would be another tough game and another hill to climb. But this is the first step. It's got to start somewhere. Both these quarterbacks desperately need it. I mean, Allen, we've seen it for years. They win the first round, and they've been bouncing the second round for a few years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
The Ravens have been all over the place. AFC Championship game, Divisional Round. They lost in the first round. They've lost at some point every year since Lamar has gotten in the league. So this is a big one for those guys to be able to get a chance to go and win a Super Bowl. And we'll see. It should be a great game. Everyone's looking forward to it. And I think that's going to do it for this episode of SRL on the NFL, recapping the wild card week and the divisional round. It's going to be an exciting week of football. Again, check us out on social media at srl.media on Instagram and TikTok. Check out this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube under the tag SRL Media. Once again, my name is Brendan Yerkes, joined alongside Alex Fachaponte. Thank you so much for tuning in to SRL on the NFL. Enjoy the weekend of football, everybody.